Guys, today we're going to be watching a video of a girl, a real life girl that got killed, or her body was found um, by the police, and she was dead. So let's just watch the video.
Mountaineering or mountain climbing is a topic that I've covered a number of times in videos on the channel. From the towering, majestic slopes of the 8,000 meter peaks in the Himalayas, to the remote, bitterly cold, and unpredictable Alaskan mountains, to the steep, jagged, and foreboding peaks of the Peruvian and Argentinian Andes. And naturally, within these videos, the climbers involved in the incidents vary significantly in their personalities and in their individual attitudes towards risk-taking, with their mountaineering experience also varying from relatively inexperienced to some of the best climbers that ever walked the face of the planet. However, the common thread that ties these varied personalities together is that they did have some experience in the mountains in wintertime conditions before the
God damn. Guys, look at this guy's lips.
incidents that would ultimately cost them their lives. Before this video, I've yet to cover a story involving someone during one of the first few mountaineering ascents of their lives. While mountaineering is inherently a risky endeavor, the main reason for this is that, well, beginners typically are much more risk-averse than more experienced mountaineers and tend to wet their feet with smaller and less steep summits that are more akin to hiking than climbing, from there working their way up to bigger, more vertical, and more impressive mountains as their skills develop. However, even on these less foreboding peaks, accidents do happen, and the mountains do not relent for anyone, which holds true for both mountaineering's upper echelon and beginners alike. In November of 2022, a 19-year-old sophomore student at Vanderbilt University, a woman named Emily Sotelo, headed to the famous White Mountains in New Hampshire while back at home celebrating the upcoming Thanksgiving holiday to do some hiking in celebration of her upcoming 20th birthday on November 23rd. Emily had become an avid hiker after picking up the hobby about 2 years earlier and had summited 40 of New Hampshire's peaks above 4,000 feet tall and sought to hopefully cross off at least 3 more of the remaining 8 peaks on her list. For her birthday
Bro, New Hampshire is like a 4-hour drive from where I live. It's pretty crazy.
trip, Emily had planned to ascend the 5,249-foot Mount Lafayette via the Franconia Ridge Loop, a challenging 8.1-mile loop that leads across Mount Lafayette's summit ridge, which was described by one trail advisory website as, quote, "This trail follows extremely rugged, exposed, and difficult terrain. You may face winter conditions such as ice, snow, high winds, frigid temperatures, and whiteout conditions on any day," it reads. On the morning of November 20th, 2022, Emily was dropped off by her mother at approximately 4:30 a.m. at the trailhead at the Lafayette Place campground for what was estimated to be a physically demanding 7 to 8 hour excursion. Emily would be undertaking this trek solo, something she had done on many of her other past summit excursions. However, unlike her past ascents, the conditions she would face that morning would be unlike any she had experienced before, as she had completed her ascents of the other 40 peaks above 4,000 feet in New Hampshire before the onset of the winter time. And so, Emily set off on her journey along the Franconia Ridge Loop Trail on a gloomy, frigid, and overcast early morning in the White Mountains. Emily had packed light for the trip, bringing only a banana, some granola bars, a battery charging pack, and a bottle of water in her bag, and began making her way up the trail. The previous evening, it had begun snowing, which carried on into the early morning hours of the 20th, and had only just abated when Emily began her trek, and a new, fresh layer of snow blanketed the trail, which made it difficult for her to follow at times. Despite her difficulties and the bitter cold, She was still optimistic about her excursion and texted her mother at 5 a.m. that morning stating that she wanted quinoa, chicken, and papaya with coffee and water for lunch later after she completed her trek. However, as the morning wore on and the sun rose from the horizon, the weather conditions did not improve, but rather began to further worsen. The weather conditions in the White Mountains in the wintertime are known to be brutal and often sudden in their onset, as storms are often accompanied by fierce winds that often blow at constant speeds of 50 to 100 miles per hour, sometimes for days at a time, as was the case with John Mallon Waterman and his father Guy, when they were caught in a sudden blizzard for several days while ascending the nearby Mount Jefferson. And notably, Guy Waterman would later freeze to death on the summit of Mount Lafayette many years afterwards, all of which I covered in my video about John. Anyways, as Emily continued to ascend the mountain, the winds began to pick up as snow again began to fall at approximately 9:40 a.m. that morning. Despite all this, Emily trudged on, but as the weather worsened, so did the visibility conditions, and unbeknownst to her, she meandered away from the trail and onto the northwest face of the mountain. With no navigation equipment on her person, this mishap would transform her situation from bad to desperate, as by this point she was surely feeling the full effects of the frigid weather, as she found herself woefully unequipped for the wintertime temperatures, which began to plummet from 27 degrees Fahrenheit and into the single digits Fahrenheit. Emily had dressed for cold weather, wearing long underwear under her clothes, along with heated gloves and a neck warmer, but clearly had expected weather conditions more akin to a hike in nippy weather, rather than the more typical mountaineering weather conditions she faced that morning, as she had worn only low-cut trail running shoes, exercise pants, and a light jacket, and hadn't worn a hat, which would have helped keep her core body heat from escaping out from her head. At 11 a.m. that morning, as the weather continued to worsen, Emily's mother texted her,
Bro, I'm gonna start wearing hats, cause like, it gets cold, and I did not know that if you wear a hat, it actually keeps your core body temperature higher because it keeps your body temperature from escaping your head. I did not know that.
to check in on her progress. However, she received no response from her daughter in return. As the day wore on, concern would begin to rapidly mount as Emily was nowhere to be found around her expected return time to the trailhead, and she continued to remain otherwise unreachable.
Bro, that's crazy because she went out in the like I guess she went out in the mountains, bro. And she got caught in like a snowstorm or something. I don't know, but she, like, bro, she went out. I think she went out in like regular low cut shoes, so they weren't even like, ankle boots. She got caught lacking pretty bad.
And by the late afternoon, a search and rescue effort for Emily was rapidly mounted, with 20 search teams dispatched to look for the missing woman. The search teams made slow progress up the mountain in their search on foot, battling the fierce winds that were now blowing at constant speeds of 40 to 60 miles per hour, with temperatures further dropping to 3 degrees Fahrenheit. By nightfall, the search teams had failed to locate her and decided to retreat for the night, as there appeared to be no break in the weather coming soon, as the snow and strong winds continued to lash the slopes of Mount Lafayette throughout the night. On the morning of November 21st, the search effort was resumed, and the weather had cleared enough for a helicopter to assist in the search efforts from above. However, despite the aerial assistance, progress on the ground was slow and labored, and the search teams were again forced to retreat from the mountain empty-handed as night fell. The following day, on the 22nd, the search teams found the location where they suspected that Emily had veered from the trail and followed what they believed to be her tracks in the snow through rugged terrain. It took the rescue teams 2 hours to travel 900 feet through the frozen, dense thicket and fresh deep snow that was waist deep in places. As they followed her tracks, the team knew they were getting closer to finding Emily, as they located several of her personal items, and one of the helicopters searching from above spotted what appeared to be more tracks. However, the search teams were once again forced to retreat from the mountain as the day drew to a close and night began to fall. Having found her general direction of assumed travel and some of her belongings, the rescue teams now had a better idea of where to search for her. And on the morning of November 23rd, on what would have been Emily's 20th birthday, they utilized a multi-pronged approach to their searches, approaching the site where they had located her belongings from several different directions this time. Later that morning, at approximately 11:15 a.m., one of the search parties finally spotted Emily, who lay dead near the headwaters of Lafayette Brook, approximately 3/4 of a mile from where she had mistakenly left the trail. Following the grim discovery, a New Hampshire National Guard helicopter was dispatched to assist in removing her body from the mountainside, which was then transported to the nearby Cannon Mountain ski area for further transport. In the aftermath of Emily's death, U.S. National Fish and Game officials noted that a similar incident at the same spot where Emily had lost the trail had unfolded the previous year in 2021, when several hikers veered off the trail in similar weather conditions. However, they were able to relay their location to search and rescue teams after thawing out their frozen cell phones in their armpits. U.S. Fish.
Bruh. Bro, their cell phones were frozen, so they had to put it under their armpit, cause like it actually has heat. Like your armpit has heat. Like if you put it there, oh, that's crazy.
Fish and Game officials also noted that Emily had come underprepared for the weather conditions, as she lacked many of the necessities to survive or escape such conditions, such as a hat, boots, compass, map, or anything to start a fire with, and thus, after becoming lost, her chances of survival were slim. Officials further stated that they believed that she had most likely succumbed to exposure by the evening of the 20th, and had likely abandoned or lost many of the items that search teams would later find strewn in her trail as she desperately tried to escape the bitter winds and cold. However, Emily's family refuted that she was an experienced hiker and had taken a course on wilderness survival, so she was not completely without her wits during her ordeal.
Wait, is this Emily Sotelo? Is that her? Oh, I guess it's her. Bro, oh, she looks really familiar. I'm not gonna lie, she looks like someone.
In the wake of Emily's death, Emily and her family received a huge outpouring of support from the public, and her family nobly urged the public to donate funds to the search and rescue teams that had risked their lives to find and recover her body. Her family and friends, her classmates at Vanderbilt, and the public alike mourned the young woman's passing, as she was a bright and caring young woman who was a trained EMT and had been studying to ultimately become a doctor, born from her desire to help people, as she had volunteered at a Navajo reservation school and had also volunteered her time to help reduce drug abuse at Vanderbilt before her death. Her mother described her as, quote, a shooting star, so brilliant and bright that burned so fast, she said. After reflecting upon the circumstances of her daughter's death, Emily's mother was reminded of her own fascination with the mountains after she had read about them in books in her youth, and recalled a short story she had written about a mountain in her native Croatia. Quote, it was just kind of my fascination with something so great so beautiful, so giving. But then in a moment, the elements changed and it turned into a beast. It was about how beautiful that mountain is, but how terrifying it is, and that it can swallow a life, she recalled.
Bruh. Like, that's crazy. Yo, rest in peace, though. Rest in peace. And, um, yo, I give credits to Morbid Midnight for posting this video. So yeah, he's the main creator. Okay, Morbid Midnight. Anyways, thanks for watching. Appreciate you guys. Um, and have a good night. And be safe. Get home safe. And remember to always drink. Okay.